Okay, so here we are in the Function Compute console. This is inside of the Alibaba Cloud Web Console. So how did I get here? Well, if you aren't already in the Function Compute console like me, but you've logged into Alibaba Cloud, then what you do is you'd click on this orange button here in the upper left, you'd mouse over Products, and then here in the search bar you'd type in Function Compute. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see the result here where it says Function Compute. You'd click on that and that would take you over to the Function Compute console. You then need to select which region you're going to use. You'll see that Function Compute is currently supported in every single Alibaba Cloud region except for Dubai. So I'm going to choose Singapore as my deployment region. That's where I want to go ahead and deploy my services. So let's take a closer look at the console itself. You'll see there's some useful info here in the right-hand side. For instance, your account ID is listed here, as well as the public endpoint that you need to call if you're trying to trigger a Function Compute function over the internet. And you'll see that that endpoint includes the region name, the Function Compute service URL, and your UID. By default, this is the endpoint you use when you're calling Function Compute functions over the internet. There's also an internal endpoint you can use if you're calling a Function Compute function from somewhere within Alibaba Cloud, for instance, another service such as ECS. Now on the left-hand menu here, you'll see there are 4 different areas. Application Center, from here you can launch pre-built Alibaba Cloud applications that are based on a template. This is a great way to learn Function Compute if you're new and to play around. If you click on Create Application, you'll see there are several different choices available to you. There's a video audio processing service, simple video transcorder, light mall, full web page screenshot maker, a to-do list application that's entirely serverless, entirely based on Function Compute and Node.js. And you feel free to go into any of these, take a look at them. Most of them come with an explanation and a demo video. And then you can go ahead and deploy these under your account and see what they do, see how they work. If you're deploying something custom that you created yourself, you do it from here under service/function. You'd first need to create a service and then create functions under that service. You can think of a service as a box that holds multiple functions. It's a way of grouping your functions together. The functions themselves are where your code actually lives. But since most production applications will involve more than one function, you need a way to group them, and that's what the service accomplishes. If you click on custom domain, this is a place where you can associate a custom URL, a custom domain name with your functions. If you do that, then you no longer need to use this long-form public endpoint URL to call your functions. Instead, you can use myfunction.mydomain.com. And then Resource Center is where you can monitor your Function Compute resource usage. You can see that over the last 24 hours, I haven't used Function Compute, but if I go back in time, I did use it a little bit last week because I gave a training on Function Compute last week. Okay, and then we'll go back to the overview page. And actually, I don't want to do anything in here by hand. I want to go ahead and create a service and a function automatically. I want to show you the power of Function Compute by creating a meme generator. We'll make our own memes using Function Compute's Python 3 runtime. And Function Compute supports multiple different programming languages. You don't have to use Python 3. It has runtimes for Python 2.7, Node.js, and a few other languages as well. Python just happens to be my favorite. And here in the Alibaba Cloud Academy GitHub page, which is github.com/alicloud-academy, I have gone ahead and created a repository for Function Compute examples called Function Compute. If I take a look inside that, you can see I have created already an internet meme maker. So this makes memes. So if I were to click on that, you can take a look at the README and you'll see that what the function does is it makes pictures like this one. So many of you have probably used Meme Generator or other similar websites to make memes. This function does it for you. So you could actually make your own Meme Generator website running on top of Function Compute. All right, so I'm going to clone into this Function Compute repository. Let's go ahead and do that. Git clone, and then the URL for this repository, and that will download all of the code that I've already pre-written. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So there's a couple different things going on here in Meme Maker. There's the README and the example meme picture. We can ignore that for now. Then there's utilities. This utility here helps me generate properly formatted URLs, which I will need when I'm calling my function compute function over the internet. It's basically just saves me some time. And then this is an example of the Python code that actually creates the meme image. This is separate from the function compute function because this way we can isolate the meme generation code from the function compute code that does URL parameter parsing and all of that complicated stuff. So if you take a look, you'll see that what this does is given a URL, top text, and bottom text, it creates a meme using Python's image library PIL, P-I-L. So you can look through this code on your own later. I won't spend a lot of time on it in the demo. It's all up in GitHub. Feel free to check it out there. I can actually run this just so that we have an example of this code in action. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll run this code and we'll see what it does. And remember, you need to pass 3 things to this code to make it work. It needs the URL of an image somewhere on the internet. It needs top text and it needs bottom text. So let's go ahead and descend into our function compute repo, meme maker, utilities, and then we'll try to run it, and you'll see it warns me that I didn't use the right format. I need to call it like this. So first thing we need to do is go over to Google and get ourselves a meme picture. So let's go for, should we go for Grumpy Cat? Yeah, we can go for Grumpy Cat. Or maybe Win Kid. Yeah, let's go for Win Kid, right? This guy. So let's go ahead and take a picture of Success Kid, as he's called in his meme form, and we'll go ahead and caption it using our Python code. So let's actually see if we can find a bigger image of a Success Kid, something a little bit higher resolution. All right, save image, copy image address. That's what we want. We want the URL. Let's just make sure that it looks okay. Yep, that's the URL that points to this image. I will now go ahead, Python 3. I'll put in the, oh, oops, I forgot to put in the name of my image fetcher code. Put the URL in quotes. I am so happy. So happy. All right, let's go ahead and see what happens. So if all goes well, the code will go ahead and fetch that image. You'll notice that there's an issue. I'm missing a font, actually. So I can fix this easily. Up in the FC function folder, I've got this font called Oswald Bold. I can just move that here, and that should go ahead and fix the issue for me, and then I'll be able to run my code. You can see that it did run. And if I were now to go into Downloads, Meme Maker Utilities, you'll see here's the original photograph with nothing on it. And here is the new captioned meme that says, I am so happy. So you can see that the code works. Anyway, that's just the meme generation code itself. Let's have a look at the function. So if you look in index.py, you'll see that down toward the end here, there's very, very similar code to what exists in image fetcher. But at the top, there's all this additional code for splitting URL parameters and parsing them, because when we call our function over the internet, we'll be making the HTTP GET request. I can't just pass in arguments one at a time, space separated like I did here on the command line. Instead, I have to properly convert them into a URL encoded string, then call my function compute function with that URL encoded string, and then here in the function I have to decompose that string into its component parts and then use those to caption my image. Anyway, that's all super boring stuff, so we won't spend too much time on it. Again, if you're interested in how that's done, feel free to check out the code. It is up on GitHub. The things that are actually important to understand for the rest of the demo, actually, we will save this URL. We'll use it in a minute. The things that are important are these 2 files, fun.yaml and template.yaml. So fun.yaml is where we define additional libraries and packages that need to be included with our function. So the default function compute Python 3 runtime on Alibaba Cloud does include a lot of libraries already by default, but it does not include the Python image library. So I need a pip package called Pillow, and I need to install it along with my function. And this fun.yaml file defines a series of tasks that will add missing libraries. In this case, I'm adding them via pip, but we also support adding things via apt, via the Debian command line package installer. And then there's also template.yml. This is a little bit more complex. What this code does is this is a ROS template. So Alibaba Cloud has something called Resource Orchestration Service, ROS. And what ROS does is it automatically creates cloud resources for you. In this case, it's creating a function compute service and then a function compute function, and it's defining what the name of the handler is, so which function inside index.py should be run by default when the function's triggered, which is this one. And then it's also defining the timeout for the function and the memory size needed, et cetera, et cetera. It also sets up an HTTP GET trigger. So this code here in fun.yml, this will decide what packages get included in the function compute runtime for my function, and this file here, template.yml, will determine what resources exactly get created when I deploy my function. And all of that is automated for me. In fact, if I go back to the function compute repo and I go to meme maker, in the README you'll see that I explain how to do the actual build and deploy step for the function. It's very simple. You use the Alibaba Cloud fun command. If you don't already have fun, you need to do two things. First, you need to install Docker. You can get instructions here. I'm on a Mac, so I have Docker Desktop already. And then you need to install fun itself. The instructions are up on our website. To do that, you'll need to have npm installed, the node package manager. If you don't already have that, you can go ahead and get yourself Homebrew, which is a package manager for Mac, and use that to install npm. All right. So assuming you have those prerequisites, all you need to do to build and deploy your meme maker is fun build and fun deploy. So let me go up to the FC function filter of a folder, and I'll go fun build, and that will go ahead and create a new Docker image essentially that contains our function compute runtime and also the pip package that I asked to install, and then we'll run fun deploy. So fun build read my fun.yml file and realized I needed to run this to install the Python image library, and then fun deploy is going to read template.yaml and determine how to deploy my service, my function, and my trigger. And remember, a trigger is what causes a function to run. In this case, I'm saying whenever I make an HTTP GET request, you should run the code that I've defined in index.py. That is my trigger. Great, so that is now working, and you can see that it even tells us what the public URL is to call this function. So I can actually take that URL and paste it into a browser. Let's see what happens. So you'll see that it caused a text file to download. What's that about? Okay, so it's an error message. Image URL parameter is missing or malformed. Okay, so I did not pass in an image URL or top or bottom text to put on my meme. That's why the function is complaining. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's try passing this function an image URL and top and bottom text. Now to make that process easier, here in utilities I've got this gen URL code where I can pass in some information about my function and its environment and its call name. So this trigger here, I can pass that into the gen URL function, and then it will help me generate a completed URL that should run my function successfully. So we'll run gen URL. This is the URL for my function. The image URL, I saved it here. This is SuccessKid. I'll paste that into the terminal. And then the custom domain name, there is no custom domain name currently for our function, so I'll skip that. Top text is I am, bottom text is so cool. And then you can see this is the correctly formatted URL to actually call my function and caption that image. And let's see if it works. So this time we downloaded a picture and it says I am so cool. So it actually did work. But what if you don't want the picture to download? What if you were hoping to have the picture display in the browser? Or what if you didn't want to use this crazy long name to call your function? Well, that is where the custom domain names come in. So remember, there's this custom domain area here. We can create a custom domain. So I can say meme.something.com. right? So I actually have a domain name already set up in Alibaba Cloud DNS. So let's go ahead and create a CNAME record that points at function compute. And then we should be able to set up a custom domain here. So you'll see I've got this function time.xyz. And you'll see it has a CNAME record already that points to my account ID, my region, which is Singapore, and then the function compute service. This is actually the public URL to call function compute functions, so that's correct. And the top level domain is memes. So I can now go back into the custom domain area, type in memes.functiontime.xyz. Protocol is HTTP. I need to set paths that will call my meme service and meme function. And then we'll make sure we always call the latest version of our function. So what these paths I've set up here mean is that any call to this URL with any string after the end of the path, so anything after the path, will result in calling this meme function. You can actually set things up so that if your service contains multiple functions, you can have /whatever/a point to one function and /whatever/b point to another function, so that different web URLs will trigger, different paths will trigger different functions to run. In my case, I don't need that, so I'll just make all of the paths point to my meme function. And then I'll click OK. And now we have a custom domain pointing to our meme function. And actually, what's really cool about that is once you have a custom domain bound to your function, then this HTTP header will get deleted from the responses. So now when my function responds, I can force the browser to load the meme in browser. If you don't set a custom URL for your function compute functions, if you use the default URL, then this content disposition attachment header gets added to all of your HTTP triggered functions. So when they respond to the browser with content, this forces the browser to download the content. Once you have a custom domain instead of this one, then this HTTP header goes away, and you can now display any function compute responses directly in the browser, which is really, really cool. And of course, all of this only applies for function compute functions with an HTTP trigger. There are other types of triggers. We're just using the HTTP one today. Okay, so let's go back to our GenURL utility, and we'll leave all the fields the same as before, but now we'll put in our new custom domain, right? So memes.functiontime.xyz. So now this is what our function call looks like using our custom domain. And this time when I paste it into the browser, the picture loads directly in browser. How cool is that, right? And of course, if I wanted, I could easily go find another picture, right? So I could say grumpy cat, and then I could take the URL from one of these pictures and make a totally different meme. So let's go ahead and try that out. So this picture looks like it's probably high enough resolution, copy image address, and then we'll do the same thing, GenURL. We'll change to this new picture, and then we'll leave the same URL, and then I will say for the top text, I'll say, I hate functions. Great. So now, if I copy paste that in to my browser, oh, failed to fetch the image. So that image appears to be restricted so that it can't be loaded from a site other than the origin site. Sometimes websites do that to prevent leaching. Technically what I'm doing is leaching, so I guess I'll have to go back and find a different grumpy cat, but that's no problem, we can do that. So I'll go find a different grumpy cat picture and then we'll try again. So this one looks all right. Wall Street Journal. Let's go ahead and copy that address in here where we can check if it looks okay. Yeah, this one should be all right. So we'll go ahead and take that URL, run our GenURL function again, load a different picture this time, and then make the call. So we'll go back here. And sure enough, I hate functions. It loads right up. There we go. So you have now created, if you've been following along with the demo, you've now created your own meme generator. And like we talked about earlier, this is incredibly affordable. So the cost to run function compute is very, very low. You pay only for the time your function is running and network bandwidth that you use. So it's a very cheap service. It's a great way to get started, especially if you're starting on a low budget project where you can't afford to put in too much cash up front, or if you're a startup. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the demo, and again, please feel free to go over to github.com/alicloud-academy and check out our examples. We'll be uploading more examples every week. Thank you and goodbye.